Welcome to the Fastbot podcast series. I'm Tara Neal, and with me today is Raj Shastri, VP of Mergers and Acquisition, Telenor. Telenor Group is a leading telecommunications and technology company in the Nordics and Asia, serving over 200 million customers with an annual revenue of NOK 80 billion in 2025. Welcome, Raj. Great to have you on today's episode.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dive right in. The telecoms industry is going through another wave of transformation. So, what's driving M&A activity today, and how are priorities changing compared to a few years back?
Yeah, I mean, this is an ever-changing industry, isn't it? And
Yes.
I think if I look back, telecom 10 years ago, there was talk about 5G, which spectrum. These were the most important things. Today, if you look at it, and there were in-market consolidation, right, across the world. Today, if you look at what the telecom players are doing. Telenor, for example, we have stated publicly that we would go beyond um, telecom, the bread and butter telecom industry, and then look for acquisitions in other areas. So we have exposure in IoT, we have exposure in cybersecurity, and we would monetize this. We will invest in, for example, we recently invested in fiber networks in Sweden. We in the past we have formed joint venture with private equity fund for data centers, um, for fixed line. If you look at other telecom companies, they have done tower sale through partnerships. This is geography based. If you look at Asia, you can see investments in the AI platform, SK Telecom, Singtel. So definitely telecom players are looking beyond how they can monetize and how they can play in this new AI world today.
hmm And therefore, naturally leads to more mergers and acquisitions as they, try to get
Correct.
new capabilities in-house, right?
Right.
Sometimes they're already established organizations with these capabilities, and merging and acquiring will bring those capabilities on board so that you
That,
can go to market faster. Yeah. So, another thing that we want to talk about, as telcos evolve beyond connectivity into digital infrastructure and platform business, right? What kind of partnerships or acquisitions are becoming most strategically important?
yeah. I can take the example which is, directly popped in my head is the IoT sector. So we recently um, formed a joint venture with a private equity fund in Europe called Verdane for the IoT sector. So we have a separate company that is focused on the IoT. That's one of the leading player in the world right now. And that's a good example of the platform business that we are expanding into. So now
Yep.
this JV, which is a 50-50 between Telenor and Verdane, will fast track the growth of the IoT company, which is Telenor IoT, both through organic growth and inorganic in various parts of the world, including the United States, Europe, and parts of Asia. Um, so that's a perfect example where we are going beyond traditional telco and trying to scale the platform businesses. The other example is cybersecurity. Uh, and if you look at other telcos, what other telcos are doing, they are buying AI platform, they are buying private network. Uh, so those are platform businesses. Those are consumer facing, B2B, both. And these are some of the examples which are which comes to my mind. And I think going forward, you would see more digital infrastructure investment by the telcos. One's edge data centers become more important with the increasing use of AI, especially for retail consumers. So those are the areas I see in the future where you'll see investments.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you mentioned about JV, right? So I think that's a great model to go to market together, where telco brings in the connectivity portion, and then your partner company brings in the vertical expertise, as well as the other elements that are important for implementation, like on the device side and also on the platform side, like you mentioned. So platforms are becoming a core capability to enable a lot of industrial applications. So basically, telcos positioning themselves as leaders in this area, IoT and enterprise side of things, would require this sort of capabilities to come together. And I guess, we have mentioned the where Telenor is positioning itself, and I think it's quite remarkable. And, going back to what you've been saying, all the capabilities like AI, data center, and cloud and stuff, we know that they are really, reshaping the competitive landscape, right? They are must-haves today when it comes to the telecoms industry. So, how do you evaluate, which emerging technologies are truly worth investing or acquiring?
Well, if I look at the overall picture, not just from Telenor perspective, I think, the whole compute and storage business, which is the data center, right? It can be edge data center or traditional data center business. That's very important because that comes with an element of data security, especially in Europe, where having sovereign data center is quite important for some applications. So I see telecom operators, just because they have the connectivity piece already in their business model, they would become a natural choice to invest in these data centers, which are highly secure compared to the large players in the world right now, right? So that's number one. Um, then going back to the platform business, what
Mm.
essentially a platform business is basically where you're not just providing connectivity, you are providing connectivity plus a software and a service, right? That's what I mean by platform business. And that has taken a new turn because of the AI. The advent of AI has made a lot of things possible. Telcos were capturing data. They have tons of data because they are providing service. They are providing connectivity. Now, the AI applications, when they run on these data that the telcos have gathered over a period of time, it becomes incredibly valuable for them. So telcos, more and more, I wish that they go to the platform businesses, which is beyond connectivity. Then we can talk about, you know, enterprise-driven platform businesses, which are, earlier, the just to go back a bit, earlier you could see that, you know, telcos were not very interested in consumer-driven platform businesses. But then now you can see, telcos are in, um, businesses which are eSIM driven, right? Consumer eSIM driven. Um, and the third thing in my mind is the enterprise platform business, which is basically, network orchestration, IoT connect in the IoT connectivity, for example. Those areas are becoming important for telecom operators, and the large, not just Telenor. If you see other telecom operators such as Vodafone, they are big in the IoT sector. Um, so I see, these three, four trends that are emerging, and in the future, you'll see more investments pouring into these sectors.
I mean, that's great to know that these are the emerging technologies that telcos are focusing on. And like you rightly pointed out, AI definitely is something that telcos are already sitting on, a huge competitive edge simply because they have so much data. And like what you said, from their services or the customer services, from their networks. And all this data needs to be, capitalized, and it can be turned into an asset for telecom operations and also for other industries. So, and we see that for that you need, the right technologies, and it starts from investing in these technologies. And I think that's where most telcos are headed. And you've talked about IoT, and I certainly see that. IoT is going to be, defining a lot of industries in the future, and therefore connectivity becomes vital. And who is, the best when it comes to providing that connectivity? It's definitely telcos, who've already gotten their a digital infrastructure in place. So, with this strategic thinking, right, and looking ahead, into these trends and other emerging trends we have got, from AI, we've got agentic AI right now, and then people are talking about physical AI and things like that. What do you think will define the strongest telecom players over the next decade, and how is Telenor positioning itself for that future?
Yeah. As far as positioning of Telenor is concerned, we stated it publicly. I think for us, the number one is customer service innovation. And there comes the implication of AI. You can do a lot with the help of AI and innovate in that particular area. So we have become more oriented towards customer service in the recent past. And that we see the results coming, and then you will see more in the future. So that's for us. For us, that's number one. The next come along with that, we have to be responsible. We have to induce a culture, which is basically geared towards responsible AI, right? I think that's number two. And then the number two, number three and four, I would say that we are moving. We have already moved, and then in the process of simplifying our technology, moving to cloud, right? So being cloud native is utmost important for us, right? And the fourth thing I would say is smarter network, which is again with the help of AI, you are simplifying, you are automating a lot of the network applications, right? So these are the four areas where we are positioning ourselves for the future.
Mhm. And yes, those are the, core enablers for telcos, especially when it comes to monetization, right? And we know how competitive it is out there. And we see not just between telcos, but between telcos and other players trying to make an entry into the market. Connectivity is a big business, and digital applications today are defining everything that we do. So I guess, the more competitive it gets, the more important it is for telcos to explore these strategic areas. And it goes back to where we started, which makes all these acquisitions and partnerships very central to that strategy of growing and ensuring you have sustained profits, into the future. So yeah, I guess that is why we see a lot of attention going to all the M&A activities today, and we see a lot of interesting developments, world over. So I guess in your portfolio, this is something that is very exciting. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you would see more and more, like I mentioned, acquisitions, partnerships in these areas. And like you said, I think it's much more exciting today. We are going beyond connectivity. We'll be using AI in our, customer service orientation, in our operation, inside operation. You'd also see that we would be investing in, areas which are beyond mobile technology. We just invested in Sweden. We just invested in fixed network. So yeah, it's exciting time from M&A perspective.
Wow, awesome. Thank you, Raj. Thank you for, joining us today with all these insights. It's definitely great to learn from your experience. And also, it's something nice to look forward to, knowing that, telecoms keeps growing. And then we have all these new additions, from our traditional connectivity to all capabilities like AI and data centers. I mean, who would have thought, telecoms would come this far? But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Okay. And to everyone tuning in, thank you guys for listening. If you want to learn more, visit www.telenor.com and follow us for more updates and insights as we continue to uncover the latest in technology and telecommunications. See you in our next episode. Bye bye.